the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:39, good morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And let's have a look at today's front pages for you now. And the HS2 line between London and Manchester may not be ready until at least 2041, that's according to the Times.
The Eye also leading on that as ministers try to make savings in the face of inflation.
The Guardian reports that at least 500 people have died after ambulance delays last year.
BBC staff left boiling with anger at Gary Lineker after he sparked an impartiality row with comments about the government's migrant policies. That's in the Mail.
The Express leads on Gary Lineker's comments, reporting that the BBC is under pressure to make him apologise.
The Telegraph leads with concern over sex education, saying current guidance places no limits on what can be taught to children.
The Sun has news of what it describes as another wag war.
And the Daily Star says Prince Harry has spent the last 3 years moaning about being a royal, but has now declared his children have a right to be a prince and princess. I've just worked out what the Wag War story is.
What is it?
Well, that it's Wag War 2, and that means it's about Colleen and what's-her-face, isn't it?
Oh, it's somebody else now.
But I've now...
It's Becky Vardy and Annie Walker. Do you know who that is? I don't.
No idea, but it's only taken me 3 hours. Anyway, let's go through the papers with Conservative Party advisor Claire Pearsall, long-suffering wife of Nigel Nelson, who's political editor for the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People. Good to see you both this morning. But you're happy as Larry, you two, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing. To the Mail, Nigel. Let's have a look at the pension cap.
Yeah, I mean, this is all the budget speculation which is coming up when Jeremy Hunt presents it for next Wednesday. As Claire mentioned earlier, there's an extension of free childcare on the books, reason being to try and get people back into work. The labour market's very tight, and one of the things the Chancellor wants to do is to see if he can encourage people back. And this is another way of doing it by helping out people with pensions. So at the moment, you have a lifetime allowance which is tax-free of about £1 million. You can put in 40,000 a year tax-free again into your pension. You want to raise that on the basis that that would encourage people who've left work and then they can go back into work. So the other way of doing that is that if you draw down some of your pension, that you can only then get £4,000 back if you're in contributions if you join the workplace. That looks like being changed as well.
Right.
So the whole idea is to try and encourage people, especially over 50s who decided not to go back to work after the pandemic, try and get them back in again.
Money well spent.
I think it is. I do think it is. I think we need to look at the way we deal with pensioners, considering that we are all living longer, we're working for longer, and certainly as the pension age keeps increasing, I'll be 104 by the time I'm entitled to it, by the time I get there.
Yeah.
So I think that some flexibility around it does need to be worked in. Of course it's going to cost, but also pensioners shouldn't be moved out of this system because of the cost of it when they have paid into the system for their working life. So I think we need to look at all ways of doing it, but I think flexibility in the pension system is a must, and we need to look more at how we do that.
Yeah, and especially with the whole issues around the care system and how we pay and deal with people in their dotage.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's like, well, if you can encourage people to save more money and be self-funding in that way, all the better.
This is the whole idea. I mean, obviously it costs him a bit because he loses tax out of it, but beyond that, all you're doing is actually twiddling around with allowances.
Yeah.
And at the moment, he's got somewhere between 30 billion he didn't expect to have, maybe even up to 100 billion, which you can start spending. So it won't be on tax cuts, but it could be on things like this.
Yeah, well, you know, good.
Should we talk about the weather, Claire?
Oh,
because we love to talk about the weather, don't we? And this is quite rare, I'd say, snow in March, and there are warnings in the Express.
No, I mean, I think it's more common than you realise, and I was certainly flicking back through photographs of mine of when we had snow at Easter, sort of early April. So it's not unusual. I think what is unusual is the level of snow that we've seen and the particular snowstorms that are going on across parts of the Midlands and the North at the moment. 50-mile-an-hour snowstorms. It sounds a bit
That's
like a
blizzard, isn't it?
It is blizzard conditions. It sounds a little bit like a film, and it was quite interesting, Ellie, what you were saying about driving. I think that we aren't good at driving in the snow as a nation. We aren't used to it. We don't get taught it. We don't travel with the right things. We don't have blankets in the car and all stuff like that. And when you look at this weather and people stopped on the motorways as they currently are, I think it's the M62, which is an absolute gridlock, we need to be a little bit better. We need to be better prepared. I think these kind of extreme weather conditions are going to continue. And this one is particularly appalling at the moment, and the winds behind it don't help. But the photographs that come through are stunningly beautiful. I mean, it's sort of a thing in two halves, if you like.
Yeah, we need a sort of winter driving grab bag.
We need, we need lessons or something. My auntie's over from Canada at the moment, and she's been watching us this week, and she's just absolutely appalled by our lack of preparation. And she's like, "Oh, have you got the snow chains in the back of the car? Have you got special tyres to put on?" And we're like, "No. I don't even know how to drive a car in ice." So, I mean, it is just, it is perhaps something we need to be a bit more prepared for, especially as we're seeing more extreme weather.
And I've sort of grown up in the countryside, so we've had these kind of weathers. It was actually my dad who taught me how to drive in snow and not to panic if you start to slide, and how to drive into it, take your feet off the pedals. It's really, really important, because otherwise you panic and then you're going to go into a hedge or a ditch and it's going to get a lot worse.
When the snow was we had some really bad snow in the sort of 70s and things, didn't we? And I remember that, but we used to get picked up by a tractor.
Did you?
In the back of a tractor, on a big box on the back of a tractor, you'd be all right.
So much fun.
That is fun.
There you go. Let's have a look at now. I'm a big fan of Bear Grylls.
Good.
I like
Excellent.
Bear Grylls. I like the fact of the scouting movement and all the rest of it. Brilliant stuff. And he's big and he's tough. And
So did you know how he got his name?
No.
Well, he's finally revealed it. That the idea was, the idea was, he must have been wrestling a grizzly or something like that, and that's how, a bit of daring do, and that's how he actually got the name. But it turns out that it was his, when he was a baby, his sister, his 8-year-old sister, gave him the name because she thought he was his teddy bear. And so the name...
Big softy.
Exactly. So the name stuck after that, and he's been Bear ever since.
Because he is Edward, isn't he?
Edward is the real name, yes.
So,
that's right.
So teddy bear, and off he goes.
So it's actually just that he was really cuddly, not that he was really tough.
Exactly, which somehow destroys the macho image, doesn't it?
It does a little bit, but I also think he always comes across as a really nice fella, actually.
He does, and it really matches his job now.
Yes,
Oh,
Bear
yeah,
Grylls
just.
thing, I mean, it's really worked out.
he was
for him.
aptly named by accident.
Yeah.
Wasn't he just?
And there are people that actually name their children Bear now, don't they? I mean, Cheryl Cole's baby is Bear.
Really?
So I actually thought he was named that.
Bear Cole.
Bear Cole. I think it might be Bear Payne, because...
Bear Payne?
Bear Payne.
It's even worse.
Liam Payne is the father, so Bear Payne it must be, wow.
It gets worse and worse.
It does, actually,
It does. No, I like it with the whole wild camping and all that sort of thing, though.
It is, it's really impressive.
I'm all up for a bit of that.
Yeah, you like the great outdoors,
I do like the great
He does.
outdoors, I do.
And we're talking about dogs now, in Crufts.
Yeah, I mean,
This is in The Guardian, because there is a warning, isn't there, after a rise in dog attacks.
That's right, and Crofts are taking the lead, if we're going to use a pun on this one.
Oh, get out.
Here to help.
Very good.
And looking at dog education classes to make people understand that you can't just treat them as a little toy and mess them around. You actually have to be responsible. Training is absolutely paramount. And just encouraging people to learn how a dog behaves and how you need to interact with it. And I think we've all seen that with people walking in parks with their dogs off a lead, and it runs over and they say, "Oh, don't worry, it's fine." And it's like, well, it might not be fine for me if your dog jumps up at me. I'm not very happy about that. But also teaching children not to just run over and come out with their hand to stroke a dog. Very, very basic things. Because dogs are absolutely beautiful, they're magnificent, but they are pack animals. And we need to behave properly around them, but we also need to leave them some space sometimes and not petting them and putting on little jackets, even though they do look very cute.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a bad dog, is there? It's just bad owners.
And we did see a lot of people, didn't we, buy dogs in lockdown and not perhaps appreciate that they are
What
hard
they were
work.
getting.
And you need to do a lot of research before you buy a dog.
Yes, I mean, we've got cats rather than dogs. at least that they look after themselves and we don't have to take them out for walks or anything. Although we did during lockdown, in fact. The cats did come for walks with us, yeah.
Yes, there you go.
I must say that the front page of The Guardian is very cute this morning. I mean, if you can get in on that one. It's a lovely little... Is that a dachshund? Is that
I have
that
no
breed?
idea, but it's wearing a snood.
Wearing a little yellow snood. He's dressed for the weather.
Beautiful.
That's for sure.
Well, that's
Which way should I be doing this? Like that?
No, the other way.
Other way.
There you go.
Ah, very, very cute. Even though we're being told not to do that.
Don't do that,
dress
no,
your
it's
dogs up.
very
Don't do
bad.
it, but it does look cute.
Look, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you both this morning.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Now...